Leapmotor just quietly filed the paperwork that's going to wreck 3 years of pricing strategy for every EV maker selling in Britain. And almost nobody's talking about it yet. On the 4th of August, Leapmotor pulled the covers off a brand new model, heading straight for the UK. It's called the Bizo 3 here, though in China, where it's already selling, they know it as the AO 5, and on paper it looks small, harmless even, a little urban hatchback. But look closer, and you'll see exactly what this brand has been building toward since it landed on British roads. This isn't just another cheap EV, this is Leapmotor, going after the Renault 5 directly. Not near it, not in the same segment, directly at it. Here's the thing about the Renault 5. It's been the darling of the British EV press for months. Award after award. Car of the Year, this. Design of the Year, that. And fair enough, it deserved a lot of it. But Renault priced it like a halo car, not a people's car, which left a gap, a big one. Leapmotor looked at that gap and, well, they measured it. The Bizo 3 comes in at 4,175mm long. That's 18 centimeters longer than the Renault 5, it's 2 centimeters wider, and it's over 9 centimeters taller. Every single one of those numbers matters, because taller and wider in a small car usually means one thing: more room inside for the people who actually have to live with it, not just look at it on a driveway. Leapmotor's own people are saying this car is built for young, urban drivers who want something agile enough for city streets, but practical enough not to punish them for it. And they're promising segment-leading flexible seating and clever storage. We haven't seen the interior photos yet. Leapmotor's keeping those under wraps for now, but if the pattern from their other UK models holds, expect it to be simple, tech-forward, and nowhere near as fussy as some of the German competition. Range-wise, we're looking at up to 242 miles WLTP. That figure lines up with the 53 kWh battery already fitted to the Chinese market version, so unless something changes before European homologation, that's roughly what you'll get here too. Is it going to outrange a Tesla? No. Is it enough for the daily reality of most UK drivers, most of whom aren't doing 300-mile motorway hauls every single day? Almost certainly, yes. And this is where it gets interesting. Because this isn't Leapmotor's first swing in this market. Not even close. Rewind to March. Leapmotor marked 1 full year on UK roads with their best month yet, 7,269 registrations across their first 12 months and a 2.2% share of the electric car market. For a brand that basically nobody in Britain had heard of 18 months ago, that's not a footnote. That's a company that found something that works. Then June happened. Leapmotor crossed 11,000 UK registrations since launch. 1% of the entire new car market, not just EVs, the whole market, went to a brand that's barely out of its second year here. 3% of all electric car sales in the country. And here's the number that should really make the established players nervous. More than 60% of Leapmotor's buyers are private, individual customers. Not fleet deals, not company car schemes stacking up numbers behind the scenes. Real people choosing this with their own money. That's double the industry average for EV retail mix. People aren't buying Leapmotor because a fleet manager told them to. They're buying it because it's genuinely, actually cheaper. And it doesn't feel like a compromise once you're sitting in it. That's the pattern here, and the Bizo 3 fits it perfectly. It's also worth understanding just how fast this lineup has grown, because it tells you Leapmotor isn't treating the UK as a side project. They launched here with basically one car. Now there are 4. The Bizo 3 city car got things started, then the C10, the big family SUV with a 5-star Euro NCAP rating and up to 263 miles of WLTP range, joined the range and quietly became one of the better-selling electric family crossovers in the country, ahead of rivals like the Kia EV5 and the Skoda Elroq, which is not a small thing to say about a brand this new. The C10 also comes as a range-extending hybrid, and that version is genuinely strange in a good way. It drives like a full EV, powered entirely through the electric motor. But there's a small petrol generator on board that tops the battery up when you need it. Combined, that setup stretches range out to somewhere around 600 miles. For anyone who's hesitated on going fully electric because of long trips or patchy charging on motorways, that's the kind of number that changes the conversation entirely. Then came the B10, another range-extending hybrid priced identically to its fully electric sibling at $31,495, which on its own tells you a lot about how Leapmotor thinks about pricing. They're not charging extra for flexibility. And most recently, the B05 hatchback landed in July, undercutting almost everything else in its class from $28,995 with the grant applied, doing 0 to 62 in 6.7 seconds and charging from 30 to 80% in about 17 minutes on a fast enough charger. Now the B03 slots in underneath all of that, aimed squarely at first-time buyers and city drivers who don't need a big family SUV. They just need something small, smart, and genuinely affordable. Let's talk about why this matters beyond just one small hatchback launching later this year. Leapmotor's whole approach in the UK has been what they call value without compromise. It's not just a slogan, it's actually a pricing strategy that's been consistent across every single model they've brought over. The B05 hatchback, launched back in June, starting from $28,995 with their Leap grant discount applied, $30,495 without it. The B10 hybrid EV, which reimagines the whole idea of a hybrid by putting electric drive at the very center of how it drives, came in at $31,495. The C10, their big family SUV, starts from $32,150 with the grant. Every single one of those cars was priced to sit just under or right alongside where you'd expect, and then it kept beating expectations on spec. Now bring in a car that's smaller, cheaper to build, and going straight at the most talked about EV of the year. You can see where the pricing conversation is heading. Renault hasn't said anything publicly yet, neither has MG, who've had their own budget EVs doing well here. But you'd have to imagine there are some very tense meetings happening in Paris and Shanghai right now because Leapmotor isn't some fly-by-night operation you can just wait out. They're backed by Stellantis, the fourth largest car manufacturer on the planet, through a joint venture that gives them serious money and serious manufacturing muscle behind every launch. That backing is exactly why this brand has been able to scale so fast without cutting corners that usually sink budget EV brands. 5-star Euro NCAP ratings across their range. A retailer network that's already at 70 locations and growing toward 100 by the end of the year. This isn't a company testing the waters. This is a company that's already decided it's staying and is now building out the exact model that competes for the exact customer that's been priced out of everything else. Think about what usually kills a budget car brand in Britain. It's not the car itself most of the time. It's what happens after you buy it. Where do you get it serviced? What happens if something goes wrong 2 years in? Whether the company's even still around by the time your warranty matters. That's the real reason British buyers have historically been cautious about newer brands, especially ones coming out of China. And it's exactly the gap that a Stellantis partnership closes. You're not betting on a startup with no safety net. You're betting on a joint venture backed by the same group behind Vauxhall, Peugeot, Citroën and Fiat. Brands that have been on British roads for decades and have the servicing infrastructure to match. That's a very different proposition to some of the smaller Chinese EV brands that have tried to break into this market and struggled to build trust fast enough. Leapmotor skipped that entire problem by not doing it alone. And the timing of the B03 isn't an accident either. It's landing right as the wider conversation in Britain has shifted from "should I get an EV" to "which EV can I actually afford?" The government's grant schemes have helped, sure, but the real shift has come from brands like this one proving that affordable doesn't have to mean stripped out or unsafe. Once that trust gets established with one model, it carries over to the next. That's exactly what's happened here. The B10, the C10, the B05, all building credibility that the B03 now gets to borrow from on day one, rather than having to earn it from scratch the way the T03 did back at launch. And here's something worth sitting with for a second. The B03 is also going up against the Geely EX2, which is currently the best-selling EV in the whole of China and is expected in the UK in the coming months too. So this isn't just LEAPMOTOR versus Renault. This is the start of genuine direct competition between Chinese-backed brands for the exact same slice of the British market. The first-time EV buyer who wants something small, stylish, and actually within reach. If you're thinking about your next car right now, this is worth pausing on before you sign anything. For years, the honest advice for anyone wanting an affordable EV in the UK was wait for prices to drop, wait for choice to improve. Wait for the charging network to catch up. That advice is starting to expire. LEAPMOTOR's LEAP grant alone knocks up to $3,650 off selected models, on top of what's already some of the most transparent pricing in the segment. No haggling games. No confusing trim ladders designed to nudge you toward the expensive version. One spec, heavily equipped, one price. That matters more than people give it credit for. A lot of buyers, especially people who've never bought an EV before, get overwhelmed by the endless list of trims and options other brands throw at them. LEAPMOTOR strips that away entirely. There's another layer to this too, one that doesn't get talked about enough. Company car drivers have been quietly watching LEAPMOTOR for a different reason entirely. Tax. Certain models in the range sit in a benefit-in-kind bracket as low as 4%, which for anyone running a car through their business is a genuinely significant saving over a comparable petrol or hybrid option. It's not the flashiest reason to buy an EV, but it's often the real reason once people actually sit down and do the maths on what a car costs them every single month, rather than just the number on the windscreen. Now, is the B03 going to be perfect? Almost certainly not. Full European technical specs still haven't been confirmed. We don't know exact UK pricing yet. We don't know the interior in detail, and a brand new nameplate always carries a bit of risk until real owners have driven it through a British winter and reported back. That's fair to say. But look at the trajectory. Look at what's already happened with every model LEAPMOTOR has launched here so far. They've consistently undercut expectations on price while matching or beating the competition on range and safety. There's no obvious reason the B03 breaks that pattern. If anything, going head-to-head with the most hyped small EV in the country suggests they're feeling confident enough to swing at the biggest target in the room. So here's where I land on this. If you've been eyeing the Renault 5 but the price tag's been holding you back, don't sign anything yet. Wait for UK pricing on the B03. Even if it lands a few £1,000s cheaper with similar range and more interior space, that's not a small difference. That's the difference between an EV staying a nice idea and an EV actually fitting your budget. The wider story here isn't really about one small hatchback. It's about what happens to the whole UK EV market once a brand with Stellantis money behind it decides it wants your customers specifically. Established brands built their pricing around the assumption that nobody could undercut them without cutting corners on safety or tech. LEAPMOTOR's now proven, model after model, that assumption doesn't hold anymore. Tell me in the comments, would you actually consider a LEAPMOTOR over a Renault 5 if the price gap is big enough? Or does the badge still matter more to you than the numbers? I read every single one. And if this helped you get a clearer picture of where the EV market's heading, I share it with someone who's been putting off buying one. Subscribe if you haven't yet. There's a lot more coming on this.